In the year 2013, at only 18 years old, Giannis Antetokounmpo experienced something that he believed would end any chance he had of becoming an NBA player. At the time, he was playing for the B team of a Greek club called Athleticos, and although most of their games didn't have much attendance, this one was something special. Every year, the Greek league would hold an annual game between the best two teams, and the winner would be promoted to the A-League. NBA scouts would fly in and get what could be their first and only glimpse at some of these players. Outside of Giannis, most of these guys would never be seen again by these scouts. Giannis's team lost this game 89-81, and worst of all, Antetokounmpo only scored 4 points in the entire contest. This was it. His one opportunity to get some recognition was up, and now only 2 months remained before the 2013 NBA draft. Somehow, someway, he would have to find a way to get scouts' attention for one final chance. At this point, Giannis planned on going over to Spain to play professionally, with his goal of becoming an NBA player now seeming out of reach. He was very open about this in interviews too. Although he never let go of his dream of being drafted, Spain was now the first option.
What is your plan for the next year or two, or do you want to stay in Greece? What would you like to do?
I would like to go to Spain and or go to Spain and go to the draft and try to work and become an NBA player.
So, what kind of drastic shift was made in these next 2 months? How did Giannis go from unknown to the 15th overall pick? Nowadays, we look at the position he was drafted and laugh at how many teams passed up on him. But if you really think about it, it's a miracle that he was drafted this high. How did anybody even find him? How was a guy playing B-League basketball in the Greek League become almost a lottery pick? What was it that convinced the Bucks that he'd be their guy? Remember to check if you are subscribed, and if you're not, please take this chance to do so. I'm pumping out content multiple times a week, and now let's answer all those questions. Giannis Ugo Antetokounmpo was born in Athens, Greece on December 6, 1994. His parents were immigrants from Nigeria and were forced to leave their firstborn son, Francis, back in Africa with his grandparents. Francis never really got that athletic gene like the rest of his brothers. However, Giannis did, and even with his family in extreme poverty, Antetokounmpo found a way to develop his skill as a basketball player very quickly. He first started playing in 2007 at 13 years old, and by the age of 15 was already playing on a youth squad for Fila Athleticos, one of the Greek League's many teams. As the years went on, Giannis would continue to climb up the rankings. In 2012, he was named to Fila Athleticos' C team, and then in 2013, just one short year later, he was promoted to the second division, aka the team's B team. Giannis would end up being drafted in the 2013 NBA draft, but it wasn't easy catching attention as a prospect that had been playing pro ball for only 2 years and was going up against very weak competition. Before NBA teams found an interest in Antetokounmpo, EuroLeague teams across the country were first finding out about his talent. Almost immediately after turning 18, he received offers from Barcelona and many Turkish teams. He ended up signing with Spanish club CAI Zaragoza, but chose to wait a year and continue playing in Greece before joining them. When Giannis talks about going to Spain instead of the NBA in some of his earlier interviews, this is the team he's talking about. All of these top-tier European franchises were gaining interest at Giannis at such an early age because some things about the game are simply objective. The competition he was playing against was very weak, but he was as fast and as agile agile as an NBA player. Look at some of these photos. The level of competition doesn't matter here. He's still able to get his entire forearm over the rim, and that's not going to change whether he's playing against LeBron James or a bunch of 5th graders. Another promising factor about him was his extreme growth, both literally and figuratively. As an 18-year-old, Giannis grew from 6'6" all the way up to 6'9", and nobody knew if he would stop growing. Of course, now we all know that he would continue growing to a towering 6'11". His progress as a player was also extremely fast, bouncing from the youth league in 2011 to the 3rd division in 2012 to the 2nd division in 2013. Every single year, he was being promoted in a major way, and being so young and so raw as a player, teams knew that his progression would only continue. However, even with all this being true, NBA scouts couldn't see it. They wouldn't figure all these things out for a while. With only 2 months left to make a name for himself, Giannis was in a very tough spot. From there, 2 months turned into just 1 month left, and now he was really screwed. Then everything changed. With only 3 months remaining before the NBA draft, Giannis was invited to a tournament in Jesolo, Italy, and there would be even more scouts than there were in that Greek game that Giannis embarrassed himself at. So Giannis made the trip. It was his first time ever leaving his homeland of Greece, and at this tournament, Antetokounmpo surprised many when, despite starting at the power forward spot, he was consistently bringing the ball up court for his team. Scouts were enamored with his quirky and versatile playstyle that was highlighted by a unique combination of size and coordination. In their writings, they frequently compared his playmaking to that of Boris Diaw's. Scouts noted many issues with his game, but always followed up with remarks of how these problems could be very easily fixed. A recruiter from Eurohopes wrote, quote, "On the other hand, Antetokounmpo showed a nice lift and follow-through on his jumper, however is still really inconsistent, occasionally airballing 3-pointers. Taking into consideration his size, ball handling, and playmaking abilities, it's not hard to picture him being an isolation nightmare in a Kevin Durant mold down the road." Finally, the people were seeing what Giannis was capable of. Finally, after all this time of waiting and hoping and thinking that he blew it, well, now he was being compared to Kevin freaking Durant. It's crazy how fast things can change. And then, of course, people were struck with all the objective stuff. In Bleacher Report's breakthrough article about Giannis that served as many NBA fans' first introduction to the future superstar, writer Jonathan Wasserman wrote, quote, "The competition is underwhelming, but it's not Antetokounmpo's production that everyone is enamored with. It's his unique skill and physical tools, and that stays the same no matter who he suits up against. At 6'9", Antetokounmpo makes up for muscle with mobility and agility. He's a small forward by nature, however, his versatile skill set and reported 7'3" wingspan should allow him to play multiple positions." Jonathan, you hit the nail on the head, man. He can play literally every position. Reverting our attention back to that Italy tournament, the Milwaukee Bucks sent multiple scouts out there to both evaluate the talent and capture footage of the event. That footage was then sent to then Bucks GM John Hammond, who was stunned by what he saw. In a 2017 interview, he talked about how he didn't care about the level of competition Giannis was playing against, and only focused on what his potential was. That turned out to be a pretty good bet. Here's how that discussion went down. Hammond kicks things off saying, quote, "We strictly judged him on what we saw him as and what we thought he could potentially be." Then, reporter Scott Howard Cooper asks, "So you don't really take competition into account?" And Hammond responds with, "I think it's unfair to the evaluation process, if that's what you do. It's a factor, but I don't think it's the major consideration." And we've seen this idea of quote-unquote prioritizing potential over all else reflected in almost all of Hammond's draft day decisions. Over the years, he's taken high-risk guys with extremely high ceilings like Thon Maker, Jabari Parker, and Mo Bamba. I guess this mindset hasn't worked out great for him, and we can just draw up the success of Giannis to a simple flash in the pan, but my, what a fantastic flash it was. So there it is, a simple, seemingly forgettable tournament in Italy saved Giannis just weeks before the NBA draft, putting him on the map and making the Milwaukee Bucks fall in love with him. In that same 2013 interview we brought up earlier in this video, Antetokounmpo talks about how his #1 goal in life is to become, quote, an NBA player. And now, only 8 years later, it's crazy to see how much more than just that he's become. Giannis isn't any old player, he's not even any old star. Giannis is a once-in-a-generation type player. The 2000s saw Kobe, Shaq, and Duncan. The 2010s had Durant, Curry, and LeBron. And there's no doubt in anyone's mind that for the 2020s, Giannis will be one of those names always remembered. He will always have a place in NBA history, and the next few years might just be his to dominate. And that's where this story would have ended originally, but this video was copyright stricken and taken down 3 months ago. And in that time, we've seen Giannis embark on a journey that has left him closer to a championship than he ever has been before. This year, Milwaukee secured the 3rd seed, an apparent fall from grace from prior seasons in which they almost cracked the 70-win threshold. And the doubts only continued to rise when they found themselves matched up against their arch nemesis in the Miami Heat in round 1, the very team that had upset them in 5 games last year. Would history repeat itself? Well, no. As a matter of fact, it would reverse itself. This time it was the Bucks handling the Heat. Then, injuries from Kyrie and James Harden opened up an opportunity for Giannis that he wouldn't let fly by. Despite strong efforts from Kevin Durant, the Bucks handled Brooklyn in 7, and now they face a feisty Hawks team led by the most hateable superstar on planet Earth in Trae Young. But it looks like the trail may be over, at least for this year, for Giannis. A hyperextending left knee will leave him out for the rest of the playoffs, forcing a crew of mediocre non-all-stars to now try to carry this team to the promised land. It won't be easy, but if anything, Giannis's life story should teach us that with enough heart and persistence, anything is possible. Nah, I'm just kidding. I got the Suns winning this chip easy. And this is where we are going to conclude today's video. Be sure to subscribe for videos multiple times a week. I'm going all in and will be uploading a lot more often, so trust me, you're not gonna want to miss out on what I have coming soon. And with that, stay safe out there.